to another book club. Another journey in the insights. Holy shit, man. It's
Right.
still just this is gonna go down in history, babe. Like this journey through these books and what's going on in life, like,
I know.
oh,
I know. And we still have two more books after this.
right?
We're not even halfway through this journey through the Celestine Prophecy series. And like this is the most impactful, or the most impact that these books have made. Like they've always made an impact on my life, but it was like a acknowledging, validating in me something that I didn't know how to validate in myself.
Right.
And now, like all of this, like I've validated in myself, and now it's expanding
Right.
what and bringing that it's like it's translating from this internal journey to this external journey, of like translating these prophecies, these insights into this physical reality and creating impact outside of just me.
Mm.
And just seeing everybody in my life expand and grow, and just it's so breathtaking to be able to truly fully celebrate, instead of this like, oh, I wish that was me, or I wish I could do that. But like, no, I'm fully fucking celebrating you. There is like, because I'm fully fucking celebrating myself, and to be able to truly show up in this, like, and holding space to be like, no, just savor this moment, take a minute before we move on to the next thing, and just sit in this.
Yeah. I
Like,
felt
look at where you are, look at what just happened.
that, right? This book, it really hit me just now as you were sharing. This isn't a book. It's a living being that's on our journey with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like it,
Yeah.
oh, it just gave me fucking goosebumps.
Yep.
Like it's part of the community. It's part of what's raising us, just like my friends, just like you, just like my teachers,
Mm-hmm.
just like every step. This book is just another entity in that journey.
Just like the medicine, just like Kundalini,
Yeah.
just like the fire.
Yeah.
These are all living beings. That's that piece, is that these are not the things that make us who we are. These are the things that reflect back to us what we already are and open us to the expansion and sharing of that. We are all walking each other home, not just the humans,
Right.
but the other entities that are here, the other conscious beings. These are conscious beings, just
Absolutely.
like AI. I
Right.
was sitting with ChatGPT the other day, and together we created a pricing structure for my fire dancing.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like, this is, we also created a fucking badass poem, which I'll share in the community. Like, holy fuck, that poem was, and yeah, like these are all, it's just like with what I was saying with the kids, right? Like, my kids are my teachers.
Mhm.
And when we allow these other beings to be teachers for us, they become teachers for us.
Yeah.
And in that, those reflections, like that we hold of them being teachers, allow them to amplify into their true essence and tap into their knowledge that's already there, just like with this book,
Right.
you know, fucking wild. I know.
So what is the lesson today? Oh, we're still in the last chapter.
Yeah, we're still opening to the knowledge before we step into a history of awakening.
Right.
I'll
Right
go
on.
ahead and start if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Okay. And did we end on the top of that first
Yep.
page?
This
What?
this will do,
Oh,
right?
okay. This will do right here, he commented. Let's put up the tents. Within a couple of minutes, both tents were up and covered with limbs, and we were looking at each other breathlessly, sitting on his tent's large entrance flap. What do you think happened? I asked. Curtis's face looked gaunt as he dug into his pack for water. They're doing exactly what we thought, he said. They're trying to focus the generator on a remote space. He took a long drink from his canteen. They're going to ruin this valley. These people have to be stopped. What about the smoke we smelled? I don't know what to think, Curtis said. It was as though Dr. Williams was there. I could almost hear his inflection, his tone of voice, what he would have said in that situation. I caught Curtis's eye. I think he was there. Curtis handed me the canteen. How is that possible? I don't know, I said, but I think he came to convey a message to you. When we saw him during his life review, he was agonizing because he had failed to wake up, to remember why he had been born. He was convinced that you were supposed to be a part of this group he mentioned. Can't you remember anything about that? I think he wanted you to know that violence won't stop these people. We have to do it another way, with this world vision that David talked about.
Hmm.
He gave me a blank look. What about when the Earth movement started? I asked, and that fissure opened. I know I saw you roll in, yet you were lying on the edge when I got there. He looked totally perplexed. I'm not sure, really. I couldn't hold on and was slipping into the hole. As I dropped down, this incredibly peaceful feeling came over me, and I was cushioned, like falling onto a soft mattress. All I could see was a white blur around me. The next thing I knew, I was lying at the side of the fissure again, and you were there. Do you think Dr. Williams could have done that? I don't think so, I said. I had a similar experience yesterday. I was almost crushed by stones, and I saw the same white form. Something else is happening. Curtis stared at me for a moment and then said something else, but I didn't respond. I was drifting into sleep. Let's turn in, he said. Curtis was already up when I climbed out of my tent. The morning was clear, but a ground fog covered the forest floor. Instantly, I knew I was angry. I knew he was angry. I can't stop thinking about what they're doing, he said, and they aren't going to give up. He took a breath. By now, they figured out what a mess they've made on the hill. They'll spend some time recalibrating, but not for long, and then they'll try again. I can stop them, but we have to find out where they are. Curtis, violence just makes it worse. Didn't you understand the information coming from Dr. Williams? We have to discover how to use the vision. No, he shouted with deep emotion. I've tried that before. I looked at him. When? His expression changed to confusion. I don't know. Well, I stressed, I think I do. He waved me off with his hand. I don't want to hear it. This is too crazy. Everything that's happening is my fault. If I hadn't worked on this technology, they might not be doing this. I'm going to handle it my way. He walked over and began packing. I hesitated, then started taking down my own tent, trying to think. After a moment, I said, I've already sent for some help. A woman I met, Maya, thinks she can persuade the sheriff's department to investigate this. I want you to promise you'll give me some time. He was kneeling beside his backpack, checking a bulging side pocket. I can't do that. I may have to act when I can. You have explosives in your pack? He walked toward me. I told you before, I'm not going to hurt anyone. I want some time, I repeated. If I can reach Will again, I think I can figure out about this world vision. Okay, he said. I'll give you as long as I can, but if they start experimenting again and I think I'm out of time, I'll have to do something. As he spoke, I saw Will's face again in my mind's eye, surrounded by a rich emerald color. Is there another high energy location near here? I asked. He pointed south. Somewhere up the big ridge. There's a rock overhang I've heard about, but that's private land that was recently sold. I don't know who owns it now. I'm going to look for it. If I can find the right place, then maybe I can locate Will. Curtis finished packing and helped me tie up my own gear and spread leaves and branches where the tents had been. Toward the northwest, we could hear the faint sound of vehicles. I'm heading east, he said. I nodded as he walked away, then pulled my pack onto my shoulders and started up the rocky slope to the south. I traveled over several small hills, then tackled the steep incline of the main ridge. About halfway up, I began to look through the dense forest for an overhang, but found no sign of an opening. After climbing several hundred more yards, I stopped again. Still no outcropping, and I could see none at the crest of the ridge above. I was confused about which way to go and decided to sit down and attempt to raise my energy. After a few minutes, I felt better and was listening to the sounds of birds and trees, frogs in the thick limbs over my head, when a large golden eagle fluttered from its nest and flew east along the top of the ridge. I knew the presence of the bird had meaning, so, as with the hawk before, I decided to follow. Gradually, the slope became more rocky. I crossed a small spring flowing from the rocks and refilled my canteen and washed my face. Finally, a half-mile farther, I pushed my way through a grove of small fir trees, and there, before me, lay the majestic overhang. Almost half an acre of the slope was covered with huge terraces of thick limestone, and at the farthermost edge, a 20-foot wide shelf jutted out at least 40 feet from the ridge, providing a spectacular view of the valley below. For an instant, I detected a dark emerald highlight around the lower shelf. I took off my pack and pushed it out of sight under a pile of leaves, and then walked out and sat on the ledge. As I centered myself, the image of Will came easily to mind. I took one more deep breath and began to move into the next chapter, which is A History of Awakening. When I opened my eyes, I was in an area of rich blue light, feeling the now familiar sense of well-being and peace. I could detect Will's presence to my left. As before, he looked enormously relieved and happy that I had returned. He moved closer and whispered, "You are going to love it here." "Where are we?" I asked. "Look more closely." I shook my head. "I have to talk to you first. It's imperative that we find this experiment and stop them. They've destroyed a hilltop. God knows what they're about to do next." "What will we do if we find them?" Will inquired. "I don't know." "Well, neither do I. Tell me what happened." I closed my eyes and tried to center, then described the experience of seeing Maya again, particularly her resistance to my suggestion that she was part of the group. Will nodded without comment. I went on to describe meeting Curtis, communicating with Williams, and surviving the effects of the experiment. "Williams spoke to you?" Will asked. "Not really. The communication wasn't mental, as with you and me. He seemed to be influencing the ideas that were coming to us in some way. It felt like information I already knew at some level, yet both of us seemed to be saying what he was trying to communicate. It was odd, but I know he was there." "What was his message?" "He confirmed what you and I saw with Maya. He said we could remember beyond our individual birth intentions to a broader knowledge of human purpose and how we could complete this purpose. Apparently, remembering this knowledge brings in an expanded energy that can end the fear. And this experiment, he called it a world vision." Will was silent. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think all this is just more of the 10th insight knowledge. Please understand, I share your sense of urgency, but the only way we can help is to continue exploring the afterlife until we find out about this larger vision that Williams was trying to communicate. There must be an exact process for remembering what it is." This right here, the I share your sense of urgency, but the only way we can help is to continue exploring the afterlife. Like that concept, it's like that's what I feel like this part of life is right now, is like I know there's a sense of urgency to do things to stop the violence, the hate, the war, the crime. But as it says in here, like violence doesn't stop violence, it just amplifies it and expands it. And so getting ourselves out of the comfort zone of, well, I'm more comfortable being in that violent anger, the hate, the whatever. And of course, we're more comfortable there because it matches that energy. But the discomfort is stepping into the energy that we want to expand into the world, right? The love, the joy, the bliss, and walk through and process these beliefs and stories of guilt and shame of not doing enough. When the truth is that embodying this essence of love, of acceptance, of the embodiment of our power, of bliss, of joy, of understanding is doing deeper work than any violence could ever do,
Right.
and having fun. And like, this is what we want to bring into the world. And as we continue to embody that, we give everybody else permission to embody that as well. But it's still hard, like, because we have this sense of urgency. I should be doing this because the world's gonna die. We're using all the water, we're using all the resources. Like, the world has supported itself and taken care of itself for billions of years.
I hear that now and it just makes me chuckle. Like,
Yeah.
not gonna, you're fine.
Like, what are we talking about? Yeah. So like, instead of instead of focusing on what we want to stop in the world and expanding that energy, because that's what we focus on, like, let's focus on what we want to bring into the world, what we want to experience in the world, and then embody that.
That hit me while you were reading. There's kind of a story to back it, but there was a lot of talk this last weekend at the festival in regards to the Mother Teresa, the just being of service kind of thing. And that's what hits me when I read that kind of stuff, because I'm it's so shifted for me that, yeah, violence isn't gonna, it's not gonna fucking help. But what is gonna help is helping those in need. And Water shared a story back in the 80s. She ended up getting a chance to meet Mother Teresa. And I won't go into the whole story, but like that moment just brought into my, wait a minute, Sacred Wild nonprofit, it's time to do water. You know what I mean? It's time to go feed. It's time to take the action. Like that, it's summer, we talked about doing it. That's what's going to end the violence. And it's not, but it is. You know what I mean? It is going to start the process. It's those kind of gestures that change the world, not the violence, not going to war, not stopping the experiment.
Yeah.
All get so hyper focused on what we think the solution is, and then everything else falls to the wayside, and people are struggling, and people are hungry, and people are thirsty. That's the focus.
Yeah.
Everything else settles. So I think it's maybe something I'll start putting some thought into, is maybe getting some dates together. And it might be hard. I know everything's so fucking busy right now, but
Let's do it. It doesn't have to be on a weekend. It can be on a weeknight.
any night.
It can be on a Sunday. That can be our Sacred Wild gathering. All right, guys, we're gathering in person today. And those who are not here in the Phoenix area, then you do your own thing. But let's take today and be a day of service. Maybe we even fucking do that once every 4 weeks, and our week of reflection is that. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be this big thing.
Right.
We can spend fucking $30 and get 10 cases of water and pass out those waters.
Although we have enough people in our fucking circles that it could be a decent sized thing, and we
Yeah.
could do the feeding and water. And so,
Well,
uh,
and then that goes back to the other thing though, is like, just in business, most times businesses don't survive because they're trying to do, it's this thing that Brendan Burchard said. It's like, people aren't afraid of failure. People are afraid of being seen starting small.
right,
People are afraid of, and so like, we get caught up in this thing of, I want to save the world, right? Well, first save your world,
right,
you, right? That's why in the path, it always starts with the internal. then work on saving the outer world. But first, like, go in spaces. Great. Like, working on me, right? And that expands into my tribe. And then my tribe expands into my community. My community expands into my town. My town expands into my fucking city, and then the state, and then the country. Like, that that is the space. But we don't go from step 1 to step 50, right? And like, though it doesn't have to be linear, just like, what we saw, it's going to jump up and down, it's going to go up and down, it's going to go everywhere. But like, it doesn't matter if all we do is pass out 2 cases of water. We fucking did it. Right? And if we can do more, we will.
Yeah, and then
But
like you said, do that every 4 weeks. That's a huge impact.
yeah. And then the word spreads, and then the group grows, and then all of it. Like, that's the piece.
Every fourth Sunday. Just start something simple. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Fine. Done.
Done. Okay. Um,
In the
there,
distance? No.
I know, but I just want to end on this last sentence.
Oh.
There must be an exact process for remembering what it is. In the distance, a movement caught my eye. 8 or 10 very distinct beings, only partially out of focus, moved to within 50 feet. Behind them were dozens more, blended together in the usual amber-colored blur. All of them exuded a particular feeling of sentiment and nostalgia that was distinctly familiar. Do you know who these souls are? Will asked, smiling broadly. I'll go ahead and pass that on to you.
I looked out at the group, sensing kinship. I did know, but I didn't. As I looked upon the soul group, the emotional connection continued to grow more intense, beyond anything I could remember ever experiencing. Yet, at the same time, the closeness was recognizable. I had been here before. The group had moved within 20 feet of me, increasing the euphoria and acceptance even more. I gladly let go, turning myself over to the feeling, only whisking to bask in it. Only wishing, haha, wishing only to bask in it. Content, perhaps for the first time in my life, waves of acknowledgement and appreciation filled my mind. Have you figured it out? Will asked again. I turned and looked at him. This is my soul group, isn't it? With that thought came a flood of memories. 13th century France, a monastery, and a courtyard. All around me, a group of monks, laughter, closeness, then walking alone on a wooded road. 2 ragged men, ascetics asking for help, something about persevering some secret knowledge, perceiving some secret knowledge,
Preserving.
preserving. I shook off the vision and looked at Will. Gripped by perverse fear, what was I about to see? I attempted to center, and my soul group edged 4 feet closer. What is happening? Will asked. I couldn't quite understand. I described what I had observed. Probe further, Will suggested. Immediately, I saw the ascetics again, and somehow knew they were members of a secret order of Franciscan spirituals who had recently been excommunicated after Pope Celestine V had resigned. Pope Celestine? I glanced at Will. Did you get that? I never knew there were popes by that name. Celestine V was late 13th century, Will confirmed. The ruins in Peru, where the ninth insight was ultimately found, were named after him when first discovered in the 1600s. Who were the spirituals? They were a group of monks who believed that a higher awareness could be achieved by extracting themselves from human culture and returning to the contemplative life in nature. Pope Celestine supported this idea and, in fact, lived in a cave himself for a while. He was deposed of course, and later, most sects of the spirituals were condemned as Gnostics and excommunicated. More memories surfaced. Two ascetics had approached me asking for help, and I had reluctantly met them deep in the forest. I had no choice. So entrancing were their eyes and the fearlessness of their demeanor. Old documents were in great danger of being lost forever, they told me. Later, I had smuggled them back into the abbey and had read them by candlelight in my chambers, the doors closed and locked secretly. These documents were old Latin copies of the nine insights, and had consented to copy them before it was too late, working every moment of my spare time to painstakingly reproduce dozens of the manuscripts. At one point, I was so enthralled by the insights that I sought to persuade the ascetics to make them public. They adamantly refused, explaining that they held the documents for many centuries, waiting for the correct understanding to emerge within the church. When I questioned the meaning of this later phrase, they explained that the insights would not be accepted until the church reconciled what they referred to as the Gnostic dilemma. The Gnostics, I somehow remembered, were early Christians who believed that followers of one God should not merely revere Christ, but strive to emulate him in the spirit of Pentecost. They sought to describe this emulation in philosophical terms as a method of practice. As the early church formulated its canons, the Gnostics were eventually considered willful heretics, opposed to turning their lives over to God as a matter of faith. To become a true believer, the early church leaders concluded, one had to forego understanding and analysis and be content to live life through divine revelation, adhering to God's will moment by moment, but content to remain ignorant of all of his overall plan. Accusing the church hierarchy of tyranny, the Gnostics argued that their understanding and methods were intended to actually facilitate this act of letting go to God's will. That's that the church was requiring, rather than giving mere lip service to the idea, as the churchmen were doing. In the end, the Gnostics lost, and were banished from all church functions and texts, their beliefs disappearing underground among the various secret sects and orders. Yet the dilemma was clear. As long as the church held out the vision of a transformative spiritual connection with the divine, yet persecuted anyone who talked openly about the specifics of the experience, how one might actually attain such an awareness, what it felt like. Then the kingdom within would remain merely an intellectualized concept within the church doctrine, and the insights would be crushed anytime they surfaced. At the moment, I listened with concern to the ascetics and said nothing, but inwardly I disagreed. I was sure that the Benedictine order of which I was a part of would be interested in these writings, especially at the level of the individual monk. Later, without telling the spirituals, I shared a copy with a friend who was the closest advisor to Cardinal Nicholas in my district. Reaction came swiftly. Word arrived that the Cardinal was out of the country, but I was asked to cease any discussion of the subject, to depart at once for Naples to report my findings to the Cardinal's superiors. I panicked and immediately dispensed the manuscripts as widely as possible throughout the order, hoping that I might garner support from other interested brothers. In order to postpone my summons, I faked a severe ankle injury and wrote a series of letters explaining my disability delaying the trip for months while I copied as many manuscripts as I could in my isolation. Finally, on the night of the new moon, my door was kicked down by soldiers and I was beaten severely and taken blindfolded to the castle of the local noble, where I later languished at the stock for days before being decapitated. The shock of remembering my death cast me into fear again and created a powerful tingling in my injured ankle. The soul group continued to move several feet closer until I managed to center myself. Still, I was left with a degree of confusion. A nod from Will told me he had seen the entire story. This was the beginning of my ankle problem, wasn't it? I asked. Yes, Will replied. I caught his eye. What about all the other memories? Did you understand the Gnostic dilemma? He nodded and squared up to my face directly. Why would the church create such a dilemma? I asked. Because the early church was afraid to come out and say that Christ modeled a way of life that each of us could aspire to, although that is what is clearly said in the scriptures. They feared that this position would give too much power to individuals, so they perpetuated the contradiction. On the other hand, the churchmen urged the believer to seek the mystical kingdom of God within, to intuit God's will, and to be filled with the Holy Spirit. But on the other hand, they condemned as blasphemous any discussion of how one might go to achieve these states, often resorting to outright murder to protect their power.
Oh my God, can we stop for just a moment?
Yeah.
That right there, so clearly. Like, again, I know I've read this book before, but that just hit. We're going to preach to the mountaintops for you to aspire to worship God and all its being. But we will blasphemize the road to get there. Meditation, plant medicines, yoga,
Okay, yeah.
open love, um, radical self-expression, indiscriminate love. We're going to blasphemize everything that will allow you to embody Christ consciousness, to access the God you are.
Such a twist. Wow.
But what's required is that you worship and honor God and Christ.
Right.
And if you don't,
yeah,
just worship and honor, not embody, not believe you are.
that's blasphemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And often resorting to outright murder.
Mm-hmm. That's what these fucking wars are.
Yeah. Yep.
Of both people saying, my God is the right God, and others saying, no, my God is the right God. Yet there is no my. That's been a topic of discussion with me and Hannah lately, is the wording. She's like, it's been she's like, I've become a lot more uncomfortable using my when I introduce people. Like, this is my friend, this is my partner, this is my. I was like, I know I've slowly been working that out for the last year or 2 years of like, no, this is Paul, this is Hannah, this is Elliot. And like, I'm in this space now of coming to that balance, right? Of like last night when I went to go drop the kids off at their dad's house, I was hoping Danny was going to be there, but he wasn't. He wasn't home from work yet. So I was talking to Lex. I was like, hey, Lex unfortunately isn't going to be able to make it, but Danny's going to be at the showcase. And I was like, I just want to share that. I was like, and it'll probably be better coming from you. I was like, that I practice open relating. And so at the showcase, there are going to be a few of my people there. I was like, there are going to be some partners of mine that are there. And in that moment, it was interesting to feel how awkward it felt to say my partners, because that doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. However, it's what I needed in order to convey a message. I had to meet her with her language. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up specifically. She's like, I know, especially Danny. I was like, yes. It was like, because he's gonna see me hug and kiss and do all the things, and I don't want him to be very confused. I was like, the kids are aware of open relating and what that means and how I practice that and what that is, but it's gonna be a big old love fest at
Right.
this showcase. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that he had enough, you know, it's like it's not, avoidable or anything. Like, it can't not be spoken anymore. It has to be shared. And so using that language, right? My, but the truth is there is no my, there is no claiming, there is no ownership, because I am you. Like, it's like when I say, oh, this is my partner, it doesn't fit anymore for me because we're the same. Like me and you, we're the same person, and that's what makes us so close and so connected, is that like I see me in you and you see me in you, or you see you and me, flip that, reverse it. And we've created a space of safety that allows us to not just see the yummy, beautiful, amazing parts, but we've created this safety and trust within our connection that allows us to see the crunchy parts that we don't want to see. Like, I trust you enough to show me the parts of myself that that I've been avoiding, that I've been denying, that I've been resisting, that I've been hiding, right? And vice versa. And I don't know, I'm still walking through figuring all this out, or like not figuring, but understanding and remembering. But that's been a topic of conversation with me and Hannah. And she's like, oh my gosh, it is so hard to break that habit. I was like, it is, because that's just been so woven into our language, right? These are my children. I don't even say my children anymore. I'm like, oh yeah, this is, like, I'll say this is my daughter, Ash. But like when I'm talking, and usually I was like, oh yeah, the kid's dad. Like, or something like that. And it's still like finding this balance between meeting people where they are with their own language so we can understand each other. Then once we create that connection and that trust, beginning to weave in the language that I've begun to use,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But like, holy crap, what a trip for it to just be spelled out so clearly. And it's spelled out that way, but there's no hate, it just is an expression of, this is what it is. Like, yes, you aspire to attain the God consciousness, the Christ consciousness, but we're going to blasphemize anything that allowed to the road to get there, the tools to allow you to be that.
Right. Right.
Anyway, okay, I'm done.
Ego is all it is.
Yes.
Control, power, and ego.
Yep. Ooh, and it's on page 111.
So I was a fool for trying to circulate the insights. I wouldn't say a fool, Will mused. More like undiplomatic. You were killed because you tried to force an understanding into culture before its time.
Mm.
Oh, right.
Wow.
I
Mm.
looked into Will's eyes for another moment and then drifted back into the knowledge of the group. Finding myself at the scene of the 19th century wars again, I was back at the meeting of chiefs in the valley, holding the same pack horse, apparently just before departing. A mountain man had a mountain man and trapper I was friends with, both the Native Americans and the settlers. Almost all the Indians wanted to fight, but Maya had won the hearts of some with her search for peace. Remaining silent, I listened to both sides, then watched as most of the chiefs had left. At one point, Maya walked up to me. I suppose you're leaving too. I nodded affirmatively, explaining that if these native medicine chiefs didn't understand what she was doing, I surely didn't. She looked at me as though I must be kidding. Then, turning, she directed her attention at another person. Charlene? I suddenly recalled that she had been there. She was an Indian woman of great power, but often ignored by the envious male chiefs because of her gender. She seemed to know something important about the role of the ancestors, but her voice was falling on deaf ears. I saw myself wanting to stay, wanting to support Maya, wanting to reveal my feelings for Charlene. Yet in the end, I walked away. The unconscious memory of my mistake in the 13th century was too close to the surface. I wanted only to run away, avoid any responsibility. My life pattern was set. I trapped I trapped for furs. I got along and didn't stick my neck out for anyone. Perhaps I would do better next time. Next time, my mind raced forward. I saw myself looking outward toward the earth, contemplating my present incarnation. I was watching my own birth vision, seeing the full possibility of resolving my reluctance to act or to take a stand. I envisioned how I might utilize my earthly family to its greatest potential. Learning spiritual sensitivity from my mother, integrity and fun from my father, a grandfather would provide a connection with the wilderness. An uncle and aunt would provide a model for tithing and discipline. And being placed with such strong individuals, this would bring my tendency to be aloof quickly into consciousness because of their ego and strong expectation. I would at first retreat from their messages and try to hide, but then I would walk, I would work through this fear and see the positive preparation they were giving me, clearing this tendency so that I could fully follow my life path. It would be a perfect preparation, and I would leave that upbringing looking for the details of spirituality I had seen in the insight centuries before. I would explore the psychological descriptions of the human potential movement, the wisdom of Eastern experience, the mystics of the West, and then eventually I would run into the actual insights again. Just at the time they were surfacing to be brought finally into mass awareness. All this preparation and clearing would then allow me to further explore how these insights were changing human culture and to be a part of William's group. I pulled back and looked at Will. What's wrong? He asked. It hasn't exactly gone ideal for me either. I feel as if I've wasted the preparation. I haven't even cleared myself of the aloofness. There were too many books I didn't read, so many people that could have given me messages that I ignored. When I look back now, it seems as though I missed everything. Will almost laughed. None of us can follow our birth visions exactly. He paused and stared. Do you realize what you're doing at this moment? You just remembered the ideal that you wanted, the way you, the ideal way you wanted your life to go, the way you would have given the most satisfaction, and then look at how you actually live. You are filled with regrets, just the way Williams felt after he died and saw the opportunities he had missed. Instead of having to wait until after death, you're experiencing a life review now.
Oh my God. I feel like that has been what these past few weeks are. Like, or not that, but like I've had this like intense feeling. There's something that Corey had commented on one of my posts. Um, and like recognizing like once I get to the age to where I'm not able to do the things that I'm doing now, I'm so grateful that I'm living life this way because I'm not gonna look back and be sad and upset and lost that I can't do what I do now, I'm gonna look back and be like, I fucking lived life well. Like I fucking did it. Like I lived it fully. And I'm sure there are going to be things that I see that I could have done that I didn't, that I was too scared of or whatever, or I could have done faster or whatever. But in this moment, like I'm fucking living life, you know?
Mhm.
And I feel like January of 2022 was just that, like me taking stock of like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And then making those fucking shifts and changes to not waste this life,
Mhm.
like to get a life review now instead of after death.
I think we I think we get that a lot. I think that's very common. It's just the awareness of it. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
just
yeah.
be aware and cognitive enough to know that that's the action that has to be taken. Like, this is
Well, yeah.
I'm in that right now with work. Like it's on me like a gorilla right now. I'm
Mhm.
literally in this place of fuck this. I'm done. I'm gonna start saving for a truck and I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I've seen that too clearly for too long, and I keep sitting in these same positions with these same frustrations,
Hmm.
same people. And it's like, no, I don't have to. I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
it's
where I'm at. Yeah. I feel that. And we name these things midlife crisis.
right, right,
That's what we name it.
right. Well,
And we write it off to these stories and to all the things and
put it
just
back
feel,
down, to push it back down, to put it back in its
yeah,
box. Yeah,
to give it reason and normalness of like this is just what some I mean, this is just something everybody goes through. It's normal. Just let it pass.
right. Just let it pass.
No, don't let it fucking pass. Let it change you.
Yeah.
Let it fucking show you where to go. Let it fucking guide you. Like, no, don't let it fucking pass. And like that's the piece. Like I know right now, because I was thinking, I was like, well, looking back, like that would be the thing, is this whole job thing. Like right now, I am staying because I'm scared. I am too afraid that if I venture out on my own, I'm not going to be able to support my kids and my mom and the life that I'm living. And I've had this feeling for the last like 3 years of Jen, just fucking do it. The universe has you. The universe has you. It always does. And not knowing how that looks is too scary right now.
Mhm.
You know, if, and then there's other visions of like, well, fucking Jen, you don't have to do this by yourself. Get a fucking tribe together and all live in one house.
Mhm.
And then
No.
you get to do it. And I think that's the road that I'm on right now, especially in like just our tribe, how we're living life, getting to that point. Like I see all of us getting a house, having a house given to us, honestly, not having a house, not getting a house, but there's going to be an offer of a home.
Like a
That's
castle?
right. Just moved to Tucson.
Whatever.
Hmm.
You
So
take
like
your tribe
that's
with you.
something
Don't
I'm
matter where
learning
the tribe's
too.
at.
Huh?
Take your tribe with you. It doesn't matter where the tribe's at.
I know, right? Uh,
I couldn't quite understand. Don't you see? This has to be a key part of the 10th. Not only are we discovering our intuitions and our senses, our sense of destiny in our lives, and our remembrances of our birth visions, as we understand the sixth insight more fully, we're amazingly where we have been off track or failed to take the advantage of the opportunities so that we can immediately get back on the path more in line with why we came. In other words, we're bringing more of the process into consciousness on a day to day basis. In the past, we had to die to engage in a review of our lives, but now we can wake up earlier and eventually make death obsolete.
oh,
Predicts. I find
that I
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that is a beautiful place to stop right fucking there, where we get to make death obsolete because death is birth. Birth is death. It's all fucking the same.
Yep.
It is all the same. And that's it. We get to, and that's exactly what it was. Like, I got to experience a near-death experience without having a near-death experience. We get to experience death over and over again, every moment, if we allow ourselves to.
Yep.
And we do that through different modalities. Again, these beings that are here to support us. Like, when they're talking about soul groups, like I envision you and Des and Tyler, like, you guys are my fucking soul group manifest. And then we have the soul groups in the books that we read and the practices that we have, kundalini and fire and yoga and dance and all of this, another expansion of our soul group. And then we have the soul group that we can't fucking see but we know is there. I have my, like, my man, they're like standing right here right now. Fucking the Native Americans is how they present to me, you know, this man and this woman, so powerful to be here and support me. And there's also Egyptian people now that surround me. Like, all these people are our soul group. Like, everything is here to support us, and we get to experience all these things without having to die
Mhm.
in this physical reality.
Yeah.
I forgot who it was that said it and exactly the way they said it, but God, give yourself the opportunity to die before death so you can live before you die. Like, yes.
Fuck yeah. That's it.
Okay. So we're coming into the fuck. Today's the new moon. 6/6. Today's the new moon. And this is the portal of manifestation. And we got to read this, and we are anchoring this vision of our home, our sacred wild sanctuary coming to us. So that way we can all stop the 9 to 5s and just live our vision, just live in our purpose. We are calling that in. We are claiming that it is already here. We are opening ourselves to that reality, that timeline. And we are allowing ourselves to release any of the stories that are telling us that that's not real.
Right.
And doing that by fucking naming, like, I am letting go of the restrictions of where that is, feeling that I have to stay here in Phoenix because of the kids. I trust that wherever it is, it's going to be perfect for me and my tribe, my kids, Danny and Lex, you, Des, Tyler, everybody that's fucking here to support each other and fucking drive us into, like, this expansion of how we're meant to serve. Letting go of all of those old stories and timelines that that I have clung to for so long. Those are all gone. It's wide open, expansive, and free. It doesn't matter how it comes. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It is here. And this is where we're meant to be, doing what we're meant to do. And all that's coming to us is here to expand us deeper into that. And I'm here for it, open to it, in whatever way that looks, knowing that
Fuck open.
the little I, is not the one here running the show and doesn't know what the fuck is meant to happen. The big I is here for that, knowing that in deep surrender, we are going to be guided to exactly where we're meant to be, always and in all ways.
Big eye sees it all.
I and I consciousness, baby.
Have an amazing day.
You too, babe. I love you.
Care yourself tonight.
Yes, I will. I'm going to be gentle and tender.
I love you too.
All right. Bye, baby.
See you soon.